Now, before I get into my actual presentation, I just want to ask you a couple questions. First of all, are you a good person? Raise your hand if you think that you're a good person. I hope all of you raise your hand. All right. Raise your hand if you've been called a bad person. Now, here's an interesting one. Raise your hand if you believed it. It's not so good. Another one. Raise your hand if you feel that you have a strong moral compass. Raise it high. All right. And a final one. Do you return your shopping carts? All right. Now I've made predetermined judgments about all of you. You're bad. You're bad. You're good. You're meh. Grade me better, and then you're good. So ultimately, you all see how that's pretty unfair, right? I just made completely predetermined judgments about all of you while asking a few simple questions, and I didn't evaluate your actual character, your actual personality. I didn't evaluate any of that. It's completely unfair. And it relates back to this thing, this little picture. I can be your angel or your devil. I'm sorry, before we go on, is that a self-portrait, Miss Loava? Either way, this is very helpful because, and one final question here, how many of you think that you can either be a good or bad person? You're wrong. You can be a good and a bad person at the same time, or you can be neither. Paradoxical. This image, believe it or not, it's insanely helpful. Because guess what? You can be an angel or a devil. Who really cares? Now, there's three topics of the human characteristic that ultimately come out of trying to be a good person or not. And those three characteristics are morality as a society, morality as an individual, and the capacity for a person to change. All of those are huge parts of a human characteristic and how we truly are human. Because guess what? As a person, we need to change. We all live in a society, and as a person, we need to have strong individual morals. So, where do we go from here? Well, how about we define this? Morality is a finicky thing. It depends on the person. What's my morals could be different from your morals, and what's your morals could be different from your neighbor's morals. It's very finicky. Now, Google has a definition of this, and Google seems to know everything in this world. I'm not going to read this for you because I'm assuming that you guys have above a 5-year-old's intelligence level. So obviously read that. I think Google's wrong. I think Google is emotionless because it's mainly a string of code designed, that's not emotional at all. Meanwhile, you look at someone like you, me, we're flesh, we're blood, we have a brain, and we have emotions. We cry. We cry a lot. And I think that any one of our definitions is automatically better. Even if you have a different one than me, it could be a lot better. Now, ultimately, as a society, there's many finicky things. Stanford defines it as this, which yet again I'm not going to read because I only have 10 minutes. The University of Texas, though, has this smaller thing that I'm going to read to you, which is morality. Which is what is moral refers to what societies sanction as right and acceptable, which in and of itself is a true definition of morality as a society. You look at someone from 100 years ago, they would shit their pants seeing, normalized drinking, a weed dispensary, and a lot of minorities having rights. And today, and if someone from 100 years in the future were to look at us today, we would shit our pants seeing all these different things. Like we would seem like barbarians in retrospect. And but the big problem is we also seem to be falling into being barbarians right now. So obviously I agree. I agree with these statements because society changes. Does society change for the bad or good? Yet again, it depends on the person. But there is a possible decline in morality, and it's been it's been shown to happen. So if you look at this, you're probably saying, Charlie, what is this graph? It doesn't say anything. this is a graph off of infidelity of partners. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One of you has cheated or will cheat in your life. I don't make the rules. I'm sorry. It's blame the statistic, not me. And if you look at this, this is a violent crime rate graph. Now, obviously, since the 90s, well, we're an obvious outlier. This graph is a little old. It's dated from 2014. This graph does not demonstrate the amount of political unrest that has happened in this country from the years of 2016 to 2024. Ultimately, there have been a ton of different political events that have happened. There's been unrest, and ultimately society has been deteriorating because of a lot of that unrest. So, where does this all stem back to? How does this ultimately stem? Oh boy.
Yeah, hit show anyway.
I say we can sum it back to the 80s. In the 80s, we had Ronald Reagan funding banana republics in Colombia. And ultimately, these banana republics and this ultimate stop to the drug trade would cost a lot of money and a lot of our valuable time in the 1980s. Additionally, around this time, there was a mystery drug on the streets that's a suspect white powder. It is not the drug you're thinking of. It ultimately appeared on the streets in lower income neighborhoods, specifically African American neighborhoods, to try and bring those neighborhoods down post-segregation. How many of you view that as a deplorable action? I'd hope all your hands. Now, at the same time, this is supposed to be a picture of a space shuttle. Obviously, it's not a space shuttle, but we make do with what we do. Ultimately, Reagan had helped to jumpstart the space program. Reagan had helped to jumpstart the economy after years of stagflation, and Reagan had also helped to tear down the Berlin Wall. These three things are not really comparable. So I'm going to relate it to the scale here. We have a big thing in this, in introducing drugs into African American neighborhoods to possibly bring them down. We also have good things in tearing down the Berlin Wall and jump-starting NASA. How do we possibly judge this? How can we possibly judge what is good or bad? Yet again, it depends on the person, because the person, what's good to me may be bad to another, and what's bad to me may be good to another. It is completely dependent on the person. It's a gray area. It is insanely gray. Now here we go. I'm going to move on to morality as an individual. We have a list of bad people here. We have a lot of people. We have Stalin. We have Jeffrey Epstein. Jake, what are you doing here? Just because it's a room of underage people doesn't mean you can just jump in. Get out of here. Now, these are a list of objectively bad people. We all know that these are bad people. There's no denying that. If you're trying to say that OJ is a good person, that Mao was a good person, that Weinstein was a good person, you're kind of going to be written off as crazy. But the ultimate thing is there's also a lot of good people. How many of us practice an Abrahamic religions such as Judaism, Christianity, Islam? Raise your hands, or don't if you don't feel comfortable. Everyone here has saviors. Everyone here has good people that are part of their religion that are ultimately helped to be worshipped. And if you're an atheist, I'm not making you raise your hand. If you're an atheist, I'm not trying to out anyone. But you probably have that favorite person or that favorite thing that you just really love and you will defend with all your life. And to those people, it completely depends on that. Now, ultimately, there's morality as a person. You're not really good or bad. I view it as that, and but it's also mainly based off of something called regrets. Everyone has them. Everyone has a skeleton in their closet. Everyone has these regrets in their lives, and everyone has something that they don't want to do. And in fact, 82% of people say that they have regrets in their life, which is an insane amount. And this is according to a former Al Gore speechwriter, Daniel Pink, who wrote the book called The Power of Regret. It's a great book. I would highly recommend reading it. You can also tell that he wrote Al Gore speeches because Al Gore could not write those himself. Ultimately, morality as a person is just dependent upon who you are as a person. If you feel that you have a different moral compass, you are going to have a different thing. there's no place for us to judge another person because that's just the way it is. And ultimately, I feel that, a lot of objective good and objective bad actions can be related to a little bit of a scale, like this one depicted in the game that made me cry before. So ultimately, and it's a little ineffective because you can't judge actions based off of how good or how bad they are. But the quantity of action, if you're consistently doing more and more and more and more and more in life, then you're not really, you're not doing completely awful. Now, I'm going to be talking about redemption versus revenge. As defined by the Content Authority, redemption is ultimately a thing that can help save you, it can help uplift you, it can help make you a lot better. Now, revenge is ultimately something that brings you down. Revenge is something that will, revenge is something that brings you down. Revenge is something that ultimately makes you a worse person. And the Content Authority is not a philosophy website. It's not a religion website. It's something that helps you to determine whether something is true or not in writing. I wanted to look at that because that is an objective truth. These are objective definitions written by people who constantly scour over this sort of thing. Because ultimately in life, I have a very specific morality. Maybe it's the fact that I was raised religious, maybe it was the fact that I was raised like this, but can you be redeemed? The short answer is always. No matter if you did a good or a bad action, you can always be redeemed. Only if you want it, though. I'm not going to forgive a person. First of all, I'm not going to like a person that I forgive. But second of all, I'm not going to I'm not going to forgive someone if they don't want it. If they're consistently fucking up and they're still fucking up to this day, why am I going to forgive this person if they just keep going on and on and on and on doing this? Obviously these are people who are ascending and doing very, very well in humanity, but also if you don't, I have the science to back it up. A Johns Hopkins medical study, first of all, proved that 62% of people wanted to forgive someone. And additionally, chronic anger, which is ultimately the reason for a lack of forgiveness, is due to an increase in cortisol levels. An increase in cortisol levels can bring your heart rate up, which can cause a heart attack, can increase your likelihood for stroke, and it can increase your wrinkles. Those are all three things that I don't want. I don't want wrinkles, I don't want a stroke, and I don't want a heart attack. So ultimately, many people are saying that, there are probably going to be some people who are saying that this is a bad thing, that what I'm saying is bad, and that there's ultimately no purpose, which is nihilistic. Nihilistic was made by Nietzsche, who has an awesome mustache, by the way. I don't like him very much. I think he's stupid, and I think he wanted to be wrong. Nietzsche spent the latter part of his life wanting to be wrong about their original philosophy, and if you also look at how he died, he suffered from the same conditions. He suffered from a heart attack and of a stroke, which is, only proving my point further that if you don't forgive and you don't do this, your health is going to be costed along with the rest of it. That's the thing for cortisol. Make sure you take your stuff. So how does this change me? You can be a good person. Make someone's day. Make them a little better in life. Make them ultimately a good person. Do one little thing a day. Like Olivia had said. Do one little good thing. Make one person's day. You can try to forgive someone. Try to forgive someone that wants to be forgiven. And if not, try and make them realize that it was wrong. And because while this world may seem a little black or white, there's always going to be a gray at the end. Thank you.